Hi there, good morning, and welcome once again. It is Sunday, it is early, it's not even 6:30 in the morning yet, and it's the 25th of July, and it's still 2021. It's a bit grey out, but I don't mind that, to be honest with you. It was grey most of yesterday, and I'll come to that in a moment, no doubt, as I chat for a while as I draw. This is the drawing that I started yesterday. And it took some unexpected twists and turns along the way, I do have to say, but I am quite pleased with it. It's done. I like it just as it is. And this is really unusual for me, that I haven't gone up to the edges of the paper or created a border in any way. I may actually do that. I may come in and draw like a rectangle behind it or something like that to give it that kind of feeling of being sat on a frame or whatever, or something behind it. But I haven't made my mind up on that one yet. But I am quite pleased with that one. And this is the one that I've been working on, because I did some more drawing yesterday afterwards. And yeah, I actually use the sketchbook this way. Because if I do it that way, that darn spiral binding at the back is out the way of my hand a lot of the time. It's a lot easier to move it around and so on. So with no further ado, I'm going to find myself a pen. I need to find my glasses so I can see what I'm doing. There they are. And I'll carry on with this one, I think, and see where it goes, because I don't know at the moment. Both of these have ended up looking like strange heads. I have no idea why. It's just the way that things are flowing from my pen at the moment, I suppose. Rather than using the Tombow Fudenasuki on this one, I'm using a Unipin, or I will be using Unipins, as this one is the 0.5, and I'll use an 0.1 for details, for adding shading and what have you. So, and it really is lovely just to be able to spend some time drawing in comfortable temperatures. You can tell my mind is on what I'm drawing rather than on what I'm talking about at the moment. So yesterday was an interesting day in a lovely kind of way. I did go out. First time in God blimey, it's got to be the best part of a month, about 3 weeks, for a walk, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It wasn't a long walk because I've been inactive for a while and bits of me don't work very well, and they're stiff after I took a bit of a tumble last week again. I slept awkwardly a couple of days in the heat on the sofa. But it was so lovely. And to be out driving was also lovely as well, because I needed petrol for my little Binky. My Binky is my smart car. And Binky also needed a bit of a drive, because Binky's not been used for that amount of time and the battery needed a bit of a top up. So we didn't go far. We went far enough. I did go to a local supermarket, thinking, oh, I wonder what that's going to be. No, perhaps it won't be too busy. It was. So I didn't stop and shop. I was thinking about going back in the evening, but in the end, I'm still very nervy being around people, more so because I've taken time out, and more so because of the situation here in the UK. Wales is faring better than the other nations in terms of rates of COVID and vaccinations and so on, but I'm still bloody nervous. I'm cautious, and people can have their opinions on that for all, but I think we each have to work out for ourselves what is right and what is wrong in some ways. In others, whatever choices large numbers of people make impacts on other people. It's not an easy thing in many ways, I think. Anyway, let's not chat about that. So it was a bit too busy, so I thought, right, let's go and get this walk done. And it sounds like I was forcing myself. I wasn't. It's just that the petrol station I use is near the supermarket, so I thought I could pop in there for things that could sit in the car for a while I went for the walk. So my walk, I went to my usual place, the place I visited most over the past year and so, which is my local cemetery. Which sounds very morbid, but it's not. I find cemeteries both peaceful and relaxing and interesting. And I am hoping that if things I am hoping that after the school holidays anyway, not so much now, but in the school holidays, I am hoping after the school holidays back in the autumn to visit some more cemeteries in the area I haven't visited ever, because I find them interesting in terms of social commentary and things like sculpture and design, which does sound a bit morbid, but there's fashions in gravestones and in funerary furniture, shall call it. And although they can be pretty much similar in one area, it's quite surprising how they can change as well. My little trip to Porthcawl 3 weeks or so ago with my friend Liz, we went to a graveyard there, churchyard, and the style of graves there, gravestones and monuments, was very different to here, and it's only 20 something miles away from me. So that is always a source of interest. It speaks a lot about people and about the community in the area and about what they wanted to have as memories or to remind other people, or statements about their loved ones once they passed the spirit. So I always find that a very interesting kind of thing to do. So it's not a morbid kind of thing. I'm not hoping for bones. I'm not looking for ghosts and things like that, or intruding on people's funerals. It is an interest in social commentary of different kinds. So yeah. And this interest took hold when I was in secondary school, when I was 11, 12 years old. Is I making a right ham-fisted mess of this particular line, but it's okay. It'll work out in the grand scheme of things, I'm absolutely sure, because things do. So when I was 11 and 12 years old, the school I went to was next door to this huge cemetery. And for me to get to school in the mornings, I'd walk through the cemetery and come home at the end of the day. And so it was quite a normal thing for me to do. Getting to school was always a bit of a rush because you had to be there on time. But going home, I never felt in a rush. I was never in a rush to get home unless the weather was really foul. And even then, I'd often take a circuitous walk around the cemetery. And I was a bit nervous of doing this because I wasn't sure whether people were supposed to do such things as wander around the cemetery and look at different areas and to spend time there. And I still get a bit nervous about visiting cemeteries because of that old way of thinking and old way of being. But I'm getting over it. I'm a lot happier going to this particular cemetery than others, perhaps, because it is familiar. But that fascination started then. And of course, going at different times of year, different seasons, different times of day, different weathers, then everything is different. There's a different feel to the place. Different things pop out, and I notice different things. There's a lot of trees. There's a lot of wildflowers, for example. Though they mow the lawn, the grass around the various graves, there are areas that when they're in bloom with wildflowers, the people who work there to look after the ground staff, leave areas untouched. And in the spring, to see swathes of primroses in one area was absolutely beautiful. But there's butterflies and all sorts of things. Not that they were out yesterday because it was extremely windy and it had been extremely wet overnight at times. But the different light, different quality of light throughout the day, and the different kinds of weather and the seasons changes colours and textures and what is there to see. So it's always a little fascinating journey for me, even if I've been there, I don't know, 100 times, 200, 1,000 times. There is always that feeling of something interesting. And yesterday I was watching where I was putting my feet, because the last time I was there, I fell over. So I did want to make sure I didn't fall over again, because I would feel such a total idiot at that. But I didn't. And eventually I got to, there are some paths that are a bit uneven, and I did choose to walk along the one that is particularly uneven, which is where I fell. And that was just my sheer clumsiness and lack of observation of where I was putting my feet. And I did. I wanted to walk along it, so I wasn't scared of walking along it or nervous. I'm not now. I just have to remind myself every time I go there, watch your feet. Look at where you're going. But regardless, it was absolutely lovely. I can't tell you how excited and invigorated I was by the cooler weather, the break in the heat wave, by being out in cool winds, and they were deliciously cool. It was enlivening to be out, and I was walking a lot of the time with a smile on my face, and when not on my face, there was definitely a smile in my heart. And it was lovely. The sounds, I'd forgotten to put the earphones for my new phone in my bag, because normally I'd walk with music in, because sounds of people and sudden sounds really startle me. It's a feature of the complex post-traumatic stress that I have, parts of which are linked on. I still have parts linger that I don't think are going to go away easily. And of course this past year has increased that social anxiety that I've got, or had, that I'd started to overcome to a degree. And now it's back. So I like to listen to music while I walk to stop me getting startled by sounds of people and sudden sounds and so on. But I've forgotten that. And in some ways it was a really good thing that I'd forgotten to put earphones in. It's not that I drown noise out, it just gives me that buffer. Because the earphones I had with my old phone weren't I did have some noise cancelling ones, but I put them somewhere safe and couldn't find them, which is typical of me. I do have to say that is a typical thing that I do. And so I can still hear things. I don't like the music to be so loud that I can't that it'll end up giving me a headache or earache or some such. So yeah, so anyway, so it was absolutely lovely to be able to walk in windy weather, and it really was windy, where I could hear the rustling of leaves in the wind. Rustling, whispering, susurration of them as they rub against each other in a most delightful way. The sounds of birds, although there weren't too many out yesterday. Wisely keeping out of the weather, I suspect. But there was also an old, not sure if it's a cypress, it was some kind of evergreen tree, not fir. And I could hear it creaking in the wind as it bent. And one of the big branches upwards was actually bent out of shape quite a bit. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, please do not fall on me. Don't do that. And it didn't break. But somebody needs to have a serious look at that though. But there were branches on the floor that had been blown down in the high winds that we'd had overnight. Lots of baby seeds from trees, like baby helicopters from sycamore trees I saw there. Lots of piles of things that look like flowers from trees, or not buds because it's past bud time, but just other things that are blown down. I'm not sure if it's a mast that it's called. I meant to look it up, and I'm moving off camera gradually, aren't I? I'm moving further and further. Right, it's okay. I'll get there. And it was I would say it was absolutely lovely. The light was grey, or not golden and bright, which means that anything that was slightly coloured stood out. So lichens and mosses that had been re-energised by the overnight rain were really standing out against that greyness. And bright sunlight's lovely, but boy does it wash colours and textures out, except for certain times of the day when the sun is low in the sky. But yesterday it was just lovely to be able to see all of these things. So I am looking forward to returning later on today. It will be later today because I do have a meeting to attend around 11 o'clock. And I do want to do some art. And I will need breakfast before I venture out. That has to be said, so a shower and stuff. But I can do that and look forward to it as well. So around lunchtime. Actually, having said that, I may go out a bit later on than that, because I balked at going into the supermarket when I saw how many cars were there. It's not a busy supermarket. It's nowhere like the big ones where you have hordes and hordes of people indoors. But it would be too much for me to cope with easily, given how little time I've spent with people in the past year and a half nearly now. So I've done a click and collect delivery with Tesco's, which, for those of you who aren't in the UK, is a big supermarket chain over here. And so I can order online and then go and collect the order. It's done, the shopping's done in the store for you. And that will suit me just fine. And it was really nice actually, because I looked at all the vegetarian and vegan goodies in the fresh counter, and they've got new products there. So I'm looking forward to that. So I'm stocking my fridge up on good stuff for the next little while. These are things, you know, they're often sort of like the vegan meat and protein, vegetarian meat and protein stuff that I can't get via Abel and Cole because they're not organic. And so there are new companies bringing out new products all the time. So I'm intrigued by some of them. Bought some smoky bacon, smoked bacon, vegetarian rashers by a company called Richmond's, because they do the nicest vegetarian sausages, I think, of the lot, which I don't eat often, but when I do I always enjoy them. They're really, really well spiced and flavoured, and they're just lovely. I have to be in the mood for them because I've never been a big fan of meat. Even as a child it was difficult to get me to eat meat, and I became vegetarian when I was 13, much to my mother's disgust. And I had to learn to cook for myself and feed myself. Because my mother might buy food, but she had no concept. Her idea of me not wanting to eat meat was, oh, well, you can just have the vegetables out of the beef stew. No, that's not how it works, Mother. I don't want to eat anything. So I'd make my own food. My father would often join with me. He'd say, what are you making? Go on, it's curry, vegetable curry, mushroom curry. Oh, make enough for me, will you? So I would do that, and that was something that carried on throughout my life, and most of the time my father was still alive. And whenever I cooked something like curry or Indian food or Mexican food or anything that was something that my mother would never cook, excuse me, I'm just having some coffee, then I would do extra and pack it up in containers and take it over to my father, and it was jokingly referred to as a Red Cross food parcel because it would save my father from my mother's cooking, because my mother's cooking isn't wonderful. Some people absolutely love it, but me and my father, and I think my dad enjoyed, he liked spicy food, he liked flavoursome food like that, just as I do. Not necessarily hot spicy, but well spicy, you know, nicely spicy. And when I learnt to cook Indian food, thanks to my friend Veena, when I was doing my PhD, he just couldn't get enough of it, like me. And so, you know, a couple of times a week there'd be a trip back and forth with new containers full of goodness, and picking the old ones up ready to refill for him. His Red Cross food parcels, as we called them, as I've said. And so how do I get on to food? Oh yeah, shopping. So I may very well decide that I may want to go out for a walk, so that when my walk's finished it'll be the perfect time for me to go and pick up my shopping, which would be quite interesting and quite fun, really, in its way. I shall see how I feel. So I'm looking forward to that, because every now and again you've got to have something that's a bit new and fresh and different. I do get bored with the same old stuff, and yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. So a bit more of this has been done. It's I never quite know what's going to appear on my page. Never. It just happens. And when I'm drawing and writing at the same time, that's even more the case, because I'm not consciously thinking about what I'm drawing, and unless I go quiet. If I go quiet, you know I am. Like now, because I'm drawing patterns there, and I want to make sure that I keep that pattern consistent. Trying to work out where I want to have the appearance of this being in shadow. I'll do those ones that side and these ones this side, just to confuse everybody. Well, maybe. There we go. And then, because I can, having lots of lines here going behind, or ribbons going behind various elements. This is going to have lots of layers in it, and again, that is something that I do tend to do. Not often quite like this. It's more done with layers of motifs that circle around, but it's beginning to get interesting here, shall we say. Yeah, I am going to finish. I was going to leave some of these open, but I think I want to finish them off like that, so they are closed spaces. This one. Be nice just like that, I think. Lots of space for adding Zentangle style patterns if I wish, or my version of my entangled patterns, because I have my own set of ways of drawing. So it's coming along. I think I've done most of the design. I don't think that I want to do any more. It feels finished. Doesn't mean that it will stay this way, because I can always go back and add some more patterns, designs to it, lines, if I wish. You know, just shoving myself along. I'm migrating further and further to the right of my desk. My camera's towards the left, so I've just shoved myself over. So what I want to do now is to start to add some shadows and textures. Again, just to help to bring these to some kind of not life, because, or perhaps it is to bring it to life, but to bring that sense of depth and dimension, and to enhance the layers, layering of everything, perhaps. Part of me now is wishing I didn't put these little bits there, but for consistency's sake, I'll need to do it all the way along now. Which is something I do like to do, to have things consistent even if they aren't always logical or make sense. Just something that I eventually worked out, particularly with things like mandalas or where I'm applying colour, is that yes, I can work with a light source, but sometimes it's really nice. The dots would have been better, wouldn't they? Possibly. Sometimes it's really nice to use colour and shadow and highlight, shadow and highlight as patterns. So they're not necessarily related to a light source, but they're consistent within the design. So the same kind of thing is used throughout. And that then gives me the opportunity to play with space, the illusion of what direction things are going in. It's hard to explain. I can't get it into words, but I know what I do. And it's making things look like one's going off in one direction and one's going off in another. And some seem to be deeper than others, which they shouldn't do, but they are. And I suppose Escher-esque, but not in an Escher kind of way, is perhaps the best way to describe that. And I do have a lot of fun with it. I do. That'll work. So that works just fine, I think. Now then, these things here, what do I fill those areas with? Because they need something to bring them out. If I colour this, then the colour would do it, but I'm not sure whether I'm going to add colour. And I'm also quite enjoying just working with pens again. The last week or so, I've done a lot of work with colour with the Ecoline pens, Ecoline inks from the brush pens, the watercolour inks, and they're fab. But I do like to change things around, take a break from something and come back to it later on. And I've done so little pen work this week. I had extended times with pens, particularly, or with pencils and pens, doing the Whimsical Cats book, that I need a break from that as well from time to time. That old saying, a break is as good as a rest, or change is as good as a rest. That's the one I was aiming for. That is true. As far as I'm concerned, to do something else for a little while means that when I return to what I was doing, what I was focusing on, it seems fresh and new again. That is why I seem to swap and change around with the style or the way that I work, because I need to freshen things up. It's not that I get necessarily bored with working in one way. It's more that I need that variety to keep things interesting as well. And also, it's interesting to experiment, and learning about new media is important to me in many ways, because I'm still searching for that magic colour medium that will have me smiling every single time I use it, that is just so natural, or I say natural, it's really easy for me to work with. Easy perhaps is the wrong word, but what's the word I'm hunting for? A medium that just works with me, that suits the way that I create, that works in a way that I can make use of, and that I enjoy using, that I don't feel I'm fighting with it constantly. Because that happens a lot with various media and me. I often end up feeling I'm fighting with them. The only one I never really feel I'm fighting with in terms of colour is when it comes to digital art. And I've worked out how to, sort of like packages work and how tools work and so on. Well, not all of them, but the basic principles, layers and goodness knows what, and all the different effects you can get. But even then, it was never really a fight along the way. It was just, this is nice, but it's not quite me. This isn't quite how I want things to be. But I am finding my way with digital art. I haven't done any this week because it's just been too darned hot to sit at the computer upstairs, and I prefer to work digital art on my desktop, my Microsoft Surface Studio, because it's huge. I can use my Surface Book, but since I've got the Studio, I just find it not so good to work on for digital art. It would work great. I've got Autodesk Sketchbook on there, but I don't have Clip Studio Paint because the licensing only allows you to install it on one device. So the device I want it installed on is the Surface Studio. So if I'm traveling, then Surface Book is what I take with me, so I can work digitally that way if I wish. But often I don't, because I prefer to have pen and paper so I can sketch, and camera so I can take references, and that works nicely enough for me, I think. So yeah, so I'm forever trying to search for a medium that I don't think I'm fighting. I've got a set of watercolours now that I don't feel I'm fighting with quite so much. I think my problem with watercolours is perhaps I'm expecting too intense a colour from them, as that is how I like to work with digital art, is quite intense colours, rather than working with them where they're meant to be fairly translucent. You know, the watercolours I have are highly pigmented, that, you know, you can have a lot of water and a little bit of paint and you get a lot of colour, and perhaps I'm trying to work with it with less water and more paint, and that may not be quite the way that I need to do things. I don't know. But the eco lines are, as far as I'm concerned, those watercolour inks are working really, really well for me. I don't know whether I'm going to have a go with the Dr. P.H. Martins at some point and see how they work, because I'm not sure how I'd feel about them at the moment, because they are a lot more expensive and I just don't know. Whereas the eco lines seem to be intense enough for me and an affordable option while I'm exploring with these things. So when the brush pens begin to run out, then I'll decide what I do next, whether I buy Ecoline inks or whether I buy just a small selection of something like the P.H. Martins to see if I like them. Because as the brush pens run out, I'll work out which colours I particularly like, and that will help me work out which ones that I want to buy in larger amounts. So the brush pens I always intended were going to be an affordable way to try the medium out, and of course I found I really do like it. More than the Magellos. It's worked quite nicely, I think. Look at some of these lines. So this is where I'm going to leave you, I think, with some of this done. I'm likely to carry on working on this for the rest of the day. Well, on and off, not in large swathes of time, because I've got things to do. And I'm going to finish now because it's nearly 3/4 of an hour long. I'll do a time-lapse version as well, so that if you don't want to listen to the whole ramblings of my brain as I work, then you can do the time-lapse. Sorry for the squeaking. But I want to say thank you to everybody who's left such lovely comments about my work. They're very, very much appreciated. Not required, but they are appreciated. And those who are returning visitors, thank you so much. And my new subscribers, because I think there's been a couple of this week, thank you very much for joining. And I look forward to seeing you all again. Please take care. Please look after yourselves. And please find time every day to be creative in some way, whatever that creativity is for you. Bye-bye for now.